Hello and welcome to the 91st episode of Sutton Impact Family Style. It's classic today. I'm Jason.
And I'm Bill. Glad to be back. And I like to talk about my trip to London first. So I went to a soccer match, and I watched Man City play Southampton, and the final score was 6-1.
Ooh, you got a lot of goals.
We got a lot of goals. And what I would tell you is that I finally got soccer a little bit.
Wow,
and I think because the one team was so much better than the other one that I could actually watch the plays being set up, and I actually got to watch it.
Okay.
Like they would attack, and if they didn't get anything, they would pull the ball out and move some guys around and attack again. I actually got to watch it. I'm not saying I like it any better than I did, but it was, it was enjoyable. I stayed for a half, and when I left, it was 4-1.
Did you get some singing?
But it was
chanting?
It was fun. I was trying to explain to students that whenever you go to a game in London or you go to an EPL game, that those players, that the people don't come until like 15 minutes before the game. There's no tailgating.
Well, they tailgate at the pub.
They show up like 15 minutes before the game.
Yeah, they're at the pub until then.
Or wherever.
Yeah.
They're on the train or wherever. And so they show up, and then right afterwards they're gone.
I know randomly a lot of Americans that I've heard talk about soccer, they always mention the time. They love the time. That it's a small, that it's barely over, it's under 2 hours every single time. Like the time commitment's not like...
It's 45 minutes, and then 45 minutes, and then if there's any mafia time for injuries and everything. I still don't get why they don't just stop the clock. But they just let it run, and they figure out how much time they need to add back in. So I'm still not big on that. But, it was enjoyable to watch. So I had a good time with that. And then I also toured the O2 Arena, which is an amazing arena. It's a bubble.
Okay.
It doesn't have a hard roof, and you can climb it. They have this track, this like climbing track they built to go over the arena.
Yeah.
And Mom did it. So you climb up. It's not, the track isn't actually on the fabric. It's above the fabric. But it's a business. So instead of having just a tour of the arena, you can climb the arena. And then the arena has a mall.
Oh.
So it's got like restaurants and shops and everything. So it's really kind of cool. That was impressive. But probably my highlight of my trip was we went and saw Macbeth at the Globe Theater. And the capacity of the theater we were in was maybe 500. It was a smaller part of the Globe, okay?
Okay.
And you're a stage guy. Have you ever heard of a play or a show done without lighting?
I would say no, not really, no.
Okay, there were no lights.
Huh.
Everything was done with candles.
Ooh, old school.
Really old school. So I imagine I saw Macbeth like they would have shown it in like 1700.
That's very cool.
And they would just, there'd be an end of a scene, and then everybody would run out, and they would either lower the chandeliers down and light the candles, or they'd lower the chandeliers down and blow out the candles and put some other lights around. But it was really, really interesting. And then, how the theaters used to be, there's a little square, it's one room, really no props. An occasional table or chair, mostly people walking around. And then characters would appear in the audience. They'd walk through the audience to the front of the audience and do their parts. So I was very, very, it's really cool to see the Royal Shakespeare Company presenting Macbeth in a situation like that. So that was my entertainment moment. I thought it was amazing.
That's insane. That's very cool.
Yeah, I was blown away, and I kept waiting and saying, well, see these lights on, when are the lights going to go out, when they can put the other lights on? And they just don't do that. So it was kind of cool.
Yeah, I was like, I think candles is what you did when you don't have lights.
Yeah. So that was my trip.
And how was the food in London? As we're already in London, let's just stay with London for a quick food update because.
Well, we were in Manchester, and I went to South Savia's Mozzarella Bar,
Ooh.
and it was outstanding. So we had a sample that had mozzarella, buffalo mozzarella, smoked mozzarella, and burrata, along with some salami and some, prosciutto and everything. That was really good. I had homemade gnocchi that was really good. That was a great one. And then the traditional meal in England on Sundays called Sunday roast. So we went to the Sam's Chop House that was like 200 years old, and I had Sunday roast, which was roast beef, and it was tremendous. So I had some really good food there.
Okay.
And then the last night when we were going to go to the theater, we had some of the students with us, so we didn't go to a nice restaurant, but we went to Shake Shack.
They have a Shake Shack in London?
They have more than one.
Huh.
And I will tell you that the Shake Shack in London tastes exactly the way it tastes in New York.
Wow, we're getting 2 down here in New Orleans in the next 6 months.
I love Shake Shack.
Of the whatever, I guess it's not quite fast food, but of all the the BurgerFi, Shake Shack, Five Guys, I think Shake Shack is my favorite of those.
Yeah, and they've got great milkshakes.
I've still never actually had a milkshake.
Black and white milkshake.
Of course, it's a classic, chocolate, vanilla, mixed together.
No, you can't argue with it. So the food was outstanding, really good.
It's incredible because London does not have a reputation outside of the fish and chips of being like a food place. I wouldn't say.
We also had a community meal the first night we were there in London. I'm sorry, Manchester, where the building that we were in was from 1550. And it was a big tourist thing that they went there, and we had a prefab meal that you had to order your meals before we got there. And some people had fish and chips, and I had a steak and ale pie, and it was pretty good.
Okay, I'm not a big.
It was more touristy.
Yeah, I've never been a big meat pie fan.
Well, there wasn't a lot of meat in it. I think 3 pieces of steak in my pie.
Yeah. Even going back to the pot pies of Swanson's and that kind of stuff, I've never really been a big fan of those.
But then we also toured Wimbledon, and we toured the Kia Cricket Grounds.
Now, when you tour Wimbledon, when there's not obviously tennis happening, or at least not professional tennis.
They just give you a presentation, they take you around, show you the courts.
Okay.
Go to center court, look at center court and everything. It's pretty amazing.
Do they have like the strawberries and cream and all that kind of stuff available, or is that not? Or is it?
No.
Okay.
But they talked about it.
Okay. I was like, I knew that's their famous.
There's 7 million blades of grass in the tennis court.
Huh.
And they didn't let us anywhere near the grass.
Of course not.
And they said Wimbledon is known for grass and wearing white, and that's their brand.
Well, it's a good brand.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we can move to America and talk about the NFL. Because I think it looks like things are finally, I shouldn't say it finally coming into shape. Good. Thursday night, we got to watch our beloved Steelers look like a legit contender.
Very much so.
They're now well in hand of the AFC North. They're 6-2-1. And then that the defense has picked up, and they look like, along with obviously the Chiefs who won again today, but struggled against the Cardinals. The Patriots who got shellacked by the Titans today. Just 34-10.
Extremely surprising.
It really was. Well, you had Mike Vrabel, former Steeler, as Patriot fans like to forget, but also former Patriot, and then former Belichick assistant. Normally Belichick gets the best of his assistants, but Vrabel, I don't know. He had their number, But you could see it was a very emotional game because as often the case when, one coach leaves and goes to another program, he's got Deion Lewis and like 3 or 4 Patriots on defense. So there's, and a lot of those guys were, I think Deion Lewis himself said, you know why they lost? Because they're cheap. And because they didn't re-sign him to a contract. And Deion Lewis, he had an okay game. But, Mariota looked really good for the first time in a while. Yeah, so just when you think everything makes sense, the Rams today really struggled with Seattle, although that's somewhat normal, It's
36-31. EP91 looks like it's going to be the final.
Yeah, it's a division game, but I mean, I don't know who I'm putting my money on right now. I thought
The Rams' pass rush is pretty incredible.
Sometimes, but they've been giving up 30, 35 points a game.
Yeah, I mean, with a really, you have to be a really mobile quarterback. If they were playing like a Matt Ryan, they might win by 100 points.
Yeah, but this year that
wouldn't be able to avoid them at all.
No. So if you go through the divisions, the Patriots are obviously going to win their division, and maybe today it was just one of those games where you randomly ran into a buzzsaw of a team, but they haven't really looked dominant all season. The Chiefs have been probably, outside of losing to the Patriots, have been the most dominant in the AFC, but they had a rough time with Arizona for about 3 quarters today.
How about a Matt Barkley victory with Buffalo over the Jets?
I know. And you know where Matt Barkley was before this, right?
Nowhere, right?
Right, but he was playing in a pickup. There's a pickup game that he was playing in with a bunch of former NFL players, and they play every week. And that's where he was honing his skills with former NFL wideouts and other former NFL players, which would be a cool game, I think, But, I mean...
Yeah, I'd like to watch that.
He was essentially out of the... granted, he played the Jets, so...
Granted, he played the Jets, but, if you can go from playing pickup football to winning a game in the NFL, that's pretty incredible.
It is, and I think it says a lot about the other quarterbacks, the Buffalo Bills as well, because the Buffalo Bills have a really good defense. You still got Shady McCoy. I mean, you've got some decent pieces there, and nobody else was able to move the football, whether it was Josh Allen, the rookie, who, most people said was going to be a little rough this year. He was the one that needed the most seasoning outside of Lamar Jackson. And obviously, poor Nate Peterman. I don't know, because, I mean, last week I was defending him saying, well, look at the weapons they have, but then Matt Barkley comes in off the street and he seems to do okay. So,
yeah.
Maybe Nate Peterman really is that bad. I don't know.
I'm thinking maybe.
Like I said, I feel oddly bad for Nate Peterman because he's become,
Well, I'll tell you who I feel bad for today. I feel bad for Des Bryant.
Yeah, it was nice though. Did you see his when his teammates when the Saints when Michael what can't I think of his name? Number 13 for the Saints, one of the best receivers in football. Anyway, when he scored touchdowns, he put up the little X like Des did. I mean, he was only their teammate for literally maybe 48 hours, and they still seemed like they had really taken to him. So
pretty incredible.
Yeah.
I felt bad for Des. I mean, I thought that is. And then let's just move to Le'Veon Bell now because, between the Des Bryant and who's the guy in Seattle?
Oh,
the defensive player that got hurt for the year.
Earl Thomas. Yeah, Earl Thomas.
Earl Thomas. That, you can see a little bit of his rationale about why he doesn't want to play and ruin his payday. I mean, I don't like it, but I mean, I can see the rationale.
All I can say...
He's 26.
Yeah.
He'll be 27 when he signs the contract. I think somebody will give him a 3-year guaranteed contract.
Yes. I mean, at the same time, he lost $15 million this year.
Which somebody pointed out in the media that he would have to sign if he signed a 2-year deal, which is what a lot of people think he's going to get.
Yeah.
You have to have a 2-year deal for $42 million to make up the $9 million he left away on the table.
Well, now it's going to be the full 15 because it looks like he's not going to report.
Yep.
That's all the signs that, even though he was like in Pittsburgh and in LA Fitness playing basketball and he spelled so long Miami wrong and some different things along the way as he was tweeting constantly. I guess if he had come out in the beginning of the year and was like, look, I wanted a real deal. Pittsburgh was only giving me this. It looks like a lot of money, but they can cut me whenever they're done with me. NFL sort of deal. I'm going to stay out, as long as I can possibly stay out. And then if this week he was like, you know what? I've seen what's happened to Earl Thomas and Des Bryant, and I'm not going to risk my future, so I'm not going to play this year. I totally understand it from a financial situation and all those sorts of things.
Sure.
But the way he handled it, both from a social media standpoint and from a teammate standpoint, seemed pretty terrible.
To me, it rivals LeBron in the decision.
Yeah, but at least the Bronze thing was like it was one night and it was for charity. This has been, months of I'm going to be there, day one, and his teammates think he's showing up, so he must be communicating with them. And then he doesn't show up, and then he tweets weird stuff. When they're losing, he's tweeting pictures of him skiing on a jet ski, but then he's tweeting, subtweeting the game when the Steelers are doing good and being like, "Oh, James Conner's a bad man," and it just seemed like his agent handled this about as poor. He and the agent handled it about as poorly as you could.
Absolutely, I agree. I totally agree.
Because maybe it won't. Maybe it'll have no effect. People will be like, he's got a ton of talent. If I'm Houston, if I'm my one of these teams, who's that? The Jets.
He's 27 years old. Somebody will give him a contract for 3 years.
Right.
I really believe that.
And again, if you're the Jets, let's say, and you've got Sam Darnold on a rookie deal for the next 4 years, you can afford Le'Veon Bell, and maybe he helps.
Yeah.
And again, if I got Le'Veon Bell in my backfield, that's an outlet for Sam Darnold to throw to. I don't think a contender is going to give him that kind of money. The Patriots would never go near him.
No, I would think Tampa Bay is a possibility. I would think the Dolphins are a possibility. You like staying in Florida?
Yeah. The other thing, though, is that, and people have talked about this too, like, he's obviously an incredibly talented player, both as a receiver and a running back, and nobody can dispute that. But James Conner has done, his season this year is better than any Le'Veon Bell season statistically.
I know.
So I know some other people.
Which gets my other point, is it, how much of it is the line?
It's the line.
So if he signs somewhere and he goes somewhere with a shitty offensive line, he can only do what he can do.
Yeah, I mean,
and I don't think you can just stand behind any line and play, because that line has to understand how he runs. It gets used to him and everything. He runs very different than most athletes.
Very different. And it's not just the line, it's also having, I'm not always in love with his game from time to time, but obviously he played an amazing game on Thursday night. But you've got a Pro Bowl Hall of Fame quarterback in Roethlisberger. You got probably, as people are finally starting to realize, the best offensive line in football. On the outside, you've always had either, some combination of, Antonio Brown and some other Pro Bowler for the most part, whether it's Juju Smith or, different guys like that. So you had a lot of factors keeping, because 8 out of the box, So, well, let's see. I mean,
there's some interesting games on the Steelers schedule coming up, one of them being in New Orleans in December, and one of them hosting the Patriots in December. So it's 2 really interesting games.
Yes. Well, playing in New Orleans, depending on where they are, that's pretty late in the year. The Patriot game is the big game. Because this loss today now means that with the Chiefs are probably going to have the 1 seed at this point at 9-1. But the Patriots are now 6-3, and the Steelers are 6-2-1. So
7-3.
The Patriots 7-3, right?
Patriots going into bye week.
Oh, that's right, 7-3, and then 6-2-1. But that's the game the Steelers need to win.
Yep.
That's the most important game left on the schedule. So, and that's a game they have not. Last year, we had the Jesse James controversial play, and then we had the Ben Roethlisberger in the end zone at the end of the game, terrible throw for the pick. But they still have not been able to beat that team.
No, they haven't.
I think they beat them.
Kryptonite.
Yeah, I feel like they beat them once with Brady in my entire life, and they beat them once with the year Brady was out. It's just,
Yeah.
Well,
I just think there's some teams you cannot, no matter what you do, you're not going to beat them, like the Bengals and the Steelers.
Yeah. And, you even look at that first game of the season. Like, the Steelers obviously had the Browns numbers for a number of years. And even when the Steelers had 6 turnovers and couldn't get anything going, the Browns still missed a field goal, and then the best they could do was tie. Like, you had everything going for you. You had 6 turnovers. You had everything you could possibly want. You still couldn't get over the hump. Couldn't beat them.
And you're at home.
And you're at home. Well, we've talked soccer. We've talked football. But we had a huge NBA trade. Jimmy Butler is finally gone from the Minnesota Timberwolves.
And they got less for him than they could have gotten a month ago.
I really liked. I don't know. You never know what's reported and what's real. But to me, the 4 Houston first-round picks that's the win right there.
And what Miami offered was better.
Yeah.
But it was Thibodeau's insistence that he get current players.
I know.
And that's what it was. That's what doomed that trade.
But that trade needed to happen. Like I said, you just even
it had to happen.
For 10 games.
So what do you like about it? Do you like the players they got for him?
I mean, the guys they got from him are nice players, but I mean, it's weird if you're Minnesota because on one hand, I'm always like, well, Towns is only 22. The Warriors are still going to be dominant for right now. The Celtics are pretty dominant. I don't know if Wiggins is ever going to live up to that money, and maybe he never will. It is what it is. But those assets of the 4 first-round picks, with Chris Paul having bad knees and being as old as he is, and Houston being as bad as they are right now, those might be pretty sweet picks. And at the very least,
and those. As I pointed out, the pick doesn't necessarily have to be a pick; it's an asset.
Right, and you could be like the 2 Houston first-rounders. Another GM will be like, okay, we're getting 2 future first-rounders. Paul's going to be gone, or he'll be on the books for a ridiculous amount of money at 38 years old, trying to play point guard in the NBA. Harden will be, in his mid-30s, like. Those will be good picks.
Yeah.
For Philadelphia, I guess it's worth the roll of a dice. I would worry, though, because you've got this exciting young nucleus. Obviously, what's his face? Markelle Fultz has not looked very good so far as the first-round pick. You traded another first-round pick to go get.
Well, social media was all about Jimmy Butler ripping him a new one.
Yeah.
When he gets there, he says, I don't think he's going to. A lot of people don't think he's going to be very good at all with Jimmy Butler around.
And that's the thing. You've got Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons. You obviously have a team that could win now. They're a very young, exciting team. You don't know how long Embiid's knees are going to live, That's a big man that's had a lot of leg problems. And that's usually not good career-wise. I mean, hopefully he's still young and he had the right surgery and everything works for good, but Jimmy Butler was terrible to teammates in Chicago. And he was terrible to teammates in Minnesota. So I don't know if that's a guy I want to bring into my locker room.
Or does he turn it around and become the competitive fire that team needs in the veteran presence?
Well, that's the thing. Embiid
is probably worth rolling the dice, Jake.
Right. And Embiid and Simmons, they ball out. They don't have any heart problems like Wiggins and Towns. But at the same time, Philadelphia's biggest weakness is outside shooting. They really only have our old Magic buddy J.J. Redick at this point, who's having kind of a down year, and Jimmy Butler also doesn't offer any outside shooting, or not consistently. So you're really gonna see how that all fits, because you obviously don't want to take the ball out of your 2 guys. You've got 2 semi-alphas in Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, and you know who Jimmy Butler is. And like I said, I'd sort of worry about that as well, but they didn't really give up a lot to get him. So
we can watch the story. We can watch all year long. It's going to be interesting. But it does position them much better than they were to play Boston.
It does. And again, you gave up 2 contracts and a second-round pick for a 1-year trial. And maybe this works, maybe it doesn't. If it doesn't, you let him go, and you go get and you try to sign somebody else in the next season. So probably definitely worth the risk for them.
So staying on basketball, on Friday night, I was in Miami, and I went to the Heat game. And it was Vice night.
Oh.
So they wore their new Miami Vice uniforms. They had the court as a Miami Vice court, and they had a Miami Vice intro. It was really cool.
On all the lists I've seen, that's always either the number 1 or the number 2 favorite jersey of these jerseys.
Yeah, it's either going to be this or the Prince jersey in Minnesota.
Yeah, the Minnesota Prince jersey looks really good. I like the Toronto jersey. I think it's a good-looking jersey. They have the little gold triangle, and it says the North on it.
Mm-hmm.
Boston has a very classic look. Some of the teams are pretty disappointing, considering all the leeway and stretch you sort of get.
Well, this uniform was cool. They had a pink shooting shirt.
Yeah, the Miami Vice is a good look for them, and it fits the Miami lifestyle.
It really was.
It's a great mix.
Yep, it really was.
And going with my normal, whenever they put out those lists of the ugliest uniforms, I did see the Bucks uniform that people said was one of the ugliest they had seen, and I liked it.
I didn't see it. What was it?
It's based on the Mecca court that they had before, so it's yellow and red. It's pretty ostentatious, but I thought it looked kind of cool. At the very least, what I liked about it is they definitely took a swing. You know,
Yep.
they were trying. Like where some of the other teams, it seemed like, you know, the Magic jersey was pretty much the same. It's always, you know, it's got a little Disney logo and some stars down the side. It was all right, but you know, you'd like to see them do something else.
True.
Expand a little bit. Make your, you know, especially if you're you know, a small market team with not a lot of, you know, recent success. If you can come out with a really cool alternative jersey, you can at least sell some jerseys.
Well, it's also how you roll it out. Like, so Minnesota rolls theirs out at Paisley Park with Carl Towns on Prince's motorcycle, which I thought was pretty cool.
Very cool.
Miami opened up the arena at midnight the night before the game, so people get a tour of the court. They did over $1 million in merchandise the day before.
Oh my god, that's good marketing.
That jersey's just so Miami.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's sports business right there. That's smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seemed like some teams just.
It's not just what you're gonna say. It's how you say it.
Yeah.
We talk about that all the time.
Well, I know the Bucks jersey.
It's important.
Yeah, the Bucks jersey is based on their old court from like the '60s. So.
I'll have to go back and look at it.
Yeah. It made the list of good try, but it was really ugly. But like I said, I liked it, so that's just me. But in other semi-basketball news, it sounds like Carmelo Anthony may no longer be a Rocket. Daryl Morey said they're evaluating everything. He's just being held out of the next game, and most people predicted this would fail miserably. And
well, you know, he's not holding him out in hopes of a trade because nobody's going to offer you anything for him.
No.
Even for free because, you know, not going to happen.
No, because he doesn't offer a value to anybody. He's been on 2 contenders in 2 consecutive years, and he was terrible for both of them. If you're a young team, I don't think you want to bring it. I mean, like I said, I think his only hope is his banana boat buddy, you know, his other banana boat buddy, not Chris Paul, but LeBron James in L.A. throwing him a bone. And being like, yeah, come be a Laker and hang out in L.A. Because I don't really know where else he goes. I really hope the Knicks don't re-sign him. I think that would just be terrible. It seems like a very James Dolan Knicks move.
That's what I was going to say, Jason.
That's why
you never know. It's the wild card.
You know, as a team that's finally, you know, with Knox and Porzingis coming back and some of these young guys, it looks like they finally, you know, are building towards respectability. They've got their own first-round pick this year. You know, they're kind of a young, fun team now. I just don't want to see that happen. But it, you know, it feels like it really could happen. I don't know.
It really could happen. That's a shame.
Because again, I mean, I know he was obviously a great Knick, and he was a good ambassador of the city, and I'm sure they would welcome with open arms. But I don't think it's good for that team, and that's not what they need.
No. I get to whine about Oklahoma State now.
Go right ahead.
22-point underdog. Should have won. Missed an extra point badly. And then you're tied going into then you make the only turnover of the game, and Oklahoma goes up by a touchdown. Then you have like 3 minutes left in the game, and you drive down in less than 2 minutes and score a touchdown. And then I was happy that they went for 2. I was just unhappy that the pass was the quality of the pass. The guy threw this for 500 yards, and the worst pass he threw all night was that one. But it just, you know, that team, I love Oklahoma State. I mean, gave up 700 yards to Oklahoma and has got about almost 700 yards themselves. But, you know, if you've only won, I think it's like 22 times out of 110, you don't know how to win. And you will find a way to lose. And Oklahoma State always finds a way to lose that game. So this one was the missed extra point, because if he makes the extra point, then when they score the touchdown, kick the extra point, then they win 49-48.
Right.
Instead of losing 48-47. So, I mean, I think I tweeted out yesterday, and my friend Scott Lofton works for the Oklahoma City Thunder, is a big OU guy, and I said, you know, I love watching Bedlam, and I'm going to watch it, but I'll predict at the end of the day, Scott Lofton will be happier than I am. And it usually always works out that way. It's just crazy.
It's very sad.
Very sad. But again, I applaud Gundy for trying to go for the win.
Yeah.
And I was impressed with Kyle Murray as a quarterback, as a Heisman candidate. I mean, he's probably one of the fastest quarterbacks, if not the fastest quarterback I have ever seen.
Oh.
He is unbelievable. But I can't see them in the college football championship. They would, I mean, if they played somebody with a good defense,
Yeah.
they would just get killed because they can't stop you.
No.
But so I think the way the college football playoff is right now, which is Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, Michigan, I think that's where it's going to end up. I'll be surprised if something else happens.
Sadly, I think that's true.
Yeah.
No UCF again.
Interestingly enough, Clemson's going to play Pitt, I think, in the Atlantic Coast Championship. And Pitt got smoked by UCF by almost 30 points.
Yeah. So we'll see. You never know. But they don't. They never.
I saw the odds. UCF has a .001 chance of being in the college football playoff.
That's
Not
fantastic.
1%.
Less than 1%. They should have at least said, give them 1%. You know, just throw it out there.
Not gonna happen. Not happening. Did you have any food moments this week or any entertainment moments?
That's some entertainment moments. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I watched a few movies. I watched Black Klansman, the Spike Lee movie,
Okay.
and that's definitely worth a watch. I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
I know it's based on a true story, but I didn't really deep dive to see, too much about it. But it was a really enjoyable, well done movie. And Spike Lee is very up and down for me, but this was another one I really liked. And then I got all the Universal monster movies, the old school ones. Somebody gave me a code for all of them at work, so I watched Boris Karloff and the Mummy and Creature from the Black Lagoon. Classic old,
wow.
black and white 1930s.
You're back in the 50s.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what's nice about them. They're all like a quick hour 10 to hour 20 minutes long.
Yeah, they're very short.
Very short. And there's something magical about old black and white Hollywood movies. They're just really nice to watch. The crazy thing is I was watching Creature from the Black Lagoon, and I was shocked in the beginning because the lead actress she's a scientist. And in the beginning of the movie, when they're in the lab going over some stuff, she's an equal with everybody else. But then once they arrive in the Black Lagoon, she sort of becomes a damsel in distress and is treated as, well, you shouldn't go there. You're just a lady. But at first I was kind of shocked. I was like, oh, wow, this was pretty progressive back then. But that quickly faded.
So, how many other of these black and white movies do you have, Keith, for?
I have The Wolfman. I have Frankenstein. I have The Invisible Man. I have Dracula. And I have Bride of Frankenstein. I have a 7 that they gave me.
Nice.
Oh, and real quickly, because I was incredibly disappointed, but you know how much I love sharks and Jason Statham. I did watch The Meg as well.
Oh, that was bad.
It was pretty bad. And again, you put a giant shark in a movie, I'm going to watch it. I'd watched Jaws recently too, which obviously is not just an incredible shark movie, but just an incredible movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things where it's like, the table's been set. You see the formula. You have good characters. You keep the shark sort of, like there's an outline for how to make a great shark movie. And people don't seem to want to follow it. But I know the Meg did incredible. Was made in, with part of China's money, and it made a ton of money here and there. So it's, good for them.
Well, on the airplane, I watched Tag.
Yeah.
Which I thought the movie sucked, but I liked the story. That this would go on for this many years. These guys really did play tag, but I didn't think I thought the trailer, again, you always say it, the trailer was the movie. Yeah,
and you had a great cast in that movie.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't very funny.
No, it wasn't very funny at all.
But it's like you had a ton of funny people. You obviously had a budget. Like there should have, I don't know what you could have done differently, but it should have been funnier.
And then I watched The Wild One with Marlon Brando.
Oh, old school. We both watch old school.
Real old school. I guess the first big movie for Marlon Brando before Streetcar Named Zack.
Okay.
And, he was good. It was like, a motorcycle gang taking over this town happened to your town. And it was, it's hard to watch it 60 years later, I guess. But, I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to watch it.
Yeah. I know. Well, that's in the because, like I said, the cool thing about the Universal movies is anything from like Hollywood from like the 30s and 40s and even early 50s. It's got its own sort of style and cadence that just sort of is like I don't know. It's oddly, I find it magical to kind of watch old movies, like really old movies.
Did you ever watch Brides of Dracula?
Brides of Dracula.
That was the first Dracula movie I could ever remember seeing, and I remember being scared out of my mind. But it was color. It was one of the first color ones.
Yeah, because
I'm pretty sure it was was Christopher Lee the Dracula, or you didn't watch it yet?
I believe he is. Yes.
Yeah, he was a great Dracula.
Well, the Mummy, the Mummy makeup and special effects were really cool. The Creature from the Black Lagoon, obviously, it looks like a giant rubber suit for the most part. I mean, slightly better, but I mean, where the Mummy is mostly practical makeup effects. Like the creature is, I think with, obviously the Mummy and with Dracula, you can do a lot with just makeup and acting, where a suit is going to always be a suit.
Yeah.
Like even when he was swimming underwater in the suit, which was still pretty cool. I mean, for back then, the underwater footage they have in that movie was pretty cool. But you could tell it looked like a man in a rubber suit. But still, it's an hour and 10 minutes long. Like, it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Sort of in the old Hollywood ways.
Did you watch the cold open of Saturday Night Live last night?
I watched a couple random clips. Like, I watched, just because the Pete Davidson thing was so much in the news this week, I watched that guy come on and, what's weird about that, and they've said this before, like, I don't know anything about that guy other than he was a vet. Like, he's not from my state, so I don't really know a lot about him. But they said that Saturday Night Live, as much as they try to sometimes attack the right, they end up turning them into likable people, either by insulting the person so bad that people feel bad for them, or making them oddly likable, when you have Tina Fey playing somebody like Sarah Palin. And they were wondering, like, did him getting made fun of, and then obviously he handled it maybe as good as any. I mean, we've seen a couple politicians do some amazing, Beto O'Rourke, obviously in Texas, had that great reply. But did you see that? Did you see the one-eyed guy's reply to the Saturday Night Live thing?
No.
He told people, he's like, look, he's like, whether or not you think, he basically said, I'm not going to blow he's like, this isn't that big a deal. He's like, whatever. He's like, nobody needs to protest. Nobody needs to lose a job. He's like, it was just a bad joke and people should just let it go. Which was very obviously non-politician, let alone non-Republican. And I think it made a lot of people like him. And then he came on Saturday Night Live this week and he was with Pete Davidson and, he handled himself really, really well. Like he came on the news. Pete Davidson apologized. He got to make fun of a picture of Pete Davidson. They obviously wrote some funny jokes for him. And then he said a really nice thing about, he's like, we need to have discussions and not arguments. And, as a vet, he's like, we need to remember everything and on this Veterans Day. So, like, I think all the SNL stuff, like, it did wonders for him without his
Yeah.
Which is sort of like you said, it's like how they're presented marketing-wise. But, they've talked about it in the past. Like, sometimes you turn these politicians you're trying to spoof into, like, these almost funny, lovable goofballs. And it almost helps them.
Kate McKinnon did the kiss off of Jeff Sessions, and it was pretty good.
Oh, okay. Because was Melissa McCarthy Jeff Sessions again, I assume?
No, McKinnon is Sessions.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. I thought Melissa McCarthy played.
Melissa McCarthy plays somebody else, but Kate McKinnon's always played Sessions. And she's really good. I mean, she's really funny.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
And they did great makeup on her, too. Yeah, you know what? Mom and I were talking. She's great on Saturday Night Live. They've not found the right movie for her yet.
No, I know somebody gave me a code for The Spy Who Dumped Me, which is her and Mila Kunis. But yeah, they just haven't been able to find the right part for her yet.
Yeah.
But I think that happens with a lot. I mean, I think even before, like, I know comedy's probably more difficult. I mean, every comedian says it's more difficult now than it's ever been. but I think they just haven't found. I don't know what they, because the Ghostbusters was a weird, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, they haven't been. It's a lot of people from SNL that like, you can tell they have just so much talent, but they just can't seem to find that part. Where obviously somebody like
Yeah.
Will Ferrell stepped right out and got the great part,
Eddie Murphy.
Yeah. Definitely. But no, zero food moments.
No, I gave you my ones from London.
Yeah. No, I had none again. Even though,
you had none. Okay.
like, even in New Orleans, I still keep having none. There was a po' boy festival today, but before we close, I just have to give my po' boy rant. First off, it's not a unique sandwich. It's a po' boy, it's a hero, it's a sub, it's a hoagie, it's a grinder. They have them everywhere. So stop pretending like it's something big, New Orleans. It's just a sandwich. Also, breaded shrimp on a sandwich is just too much bread. You don't want that. You know? We don't need to have festivals every other week for a po' boy festival. You didn't invent a sandwich. We have them everywhere in the country. Get over it. All right, my rant's over.
Okay. I don't disagree with you. A breaded something on a slice of bread is too much bread. I agree.
It's just too much bread.
It is. You don't need it.
And again, you go to New England, it's a grinder. You go to Pennsylvania, it's a hoagie. You go half the place, it's a hero sandwich or a sub sandwich. Here, it's a po' boy. It's just a sandwich. It's just a bunch of meat on a long piece of bread. But I couldn't leave my house today. I couldn't leave my parking today. I had to Uber to the gym because we had a po' boy festival and they closed down the streets. So it's very close. Yeah. And it's like, it's not, it's whatever. You didn't reinvent the wheel. It's just the same sandwich we have everywhere else in the country. Except for some reason.
Try and watch some of that. Is it Homecoming?
Yeah, the Julia Roberts show looks really. You know what's really cool about that show too?
What?
Do you know how long the average episode is?
50 minutes.
27 minutes.
Wow.
So they're taking the thriller drama, and they're making they're shorting it down from the 55-hour minutes to 27 minutes. It's kind of brilliant.
Well, I'm flying to California on Sunday, so I'm going to try and watch some of that on the flight.
And you did watch Heredity, like we discussed.
I couldn't get it. The flight on the way back didn't have it.
Ah, okay.
Really bummed me out because I was really looking forward to it. And I told about 4 or 5 people to watch it. And we got on the flight, went through the thing. They changed the menu.
Ah, okay. It might be sort of an awkward plane movie, as good as it is, but it might not be the best plane movie, I guess. Or I don't know, maybe it would be. I don't know.
Well, I'm going to make sure I watch it, though.
Yes, you need to. All right, so we are excitingly only 9 episodes.
I'll cover a show next week.
What's that?
I'll call in from California for the show next week.
And we may take off Thanksgiving weekend, just to let people know. We'll see if we can get everything put together, but we may be taking off the holiday weekend. Just throwing it out there in case we can't get it to go.
Okay.
But this is episode 91, so we're getting very close to 100. We appreciate everyone that stuck with us. Please tell your friends. Please rate us on Patreon and every other possible, especially Apple iTunes would really help us a lot. And if you can contribute to Patreon, we'd really appreciate it. But again, thank you so much for all the people that have contributed all this time and have supported us for 91 episodes.
Yes,
and maybe we'll try and do something cool.
Heartfelt thanks.
Yes, and we'll try to think of something we can do for episode 100 that will be slightly different.
Yeah, good idea.
All right, so till next week. Adios.